Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dentistry Unmasked. My name is David Rice, and here as always with
Hey everybody, Pam Maragliano-Muniz. I feel like David this week is going to be like I have my pen ready, like I'm going to be taking notes and I feel like I'm going to I don't know, I feel like I need to like leave and go vacuum my office or something after.
we miss a lot of things in practice, and I think maybe we underestimate and undervalue some things because we're just so used to being in it.
We are. And so we have the best of the best compliance, infection control, OSHA specialists with us. India Chance, Lisa Kane, welcome.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having us. We're excited to be here.
I know, so excited. Thank you for having us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're here. I feel like, gosh, I'm going to lead with we all do our best, I would think. I don't think anybody says, you know what, I'm okay if we leave that dirty, or you know what, I don't care if, whatever. I don't think people do that. But I think that inevitably there are mistakes that are made or things that are, you know, maybe there's things that are overlooked, maybe because it's not as big a priority. And do you think that, all right, let's start with this. Infection control was like the sexy thing 5 years ago. Like, where are we now? Like, are people still like as excited about it? Or do you feel like, well, I upped it in 5 years ago. What I did then should be fine now. What's the scoop?
I totally agree with you that it was sexy 5 years ago during the pandemic, of course. But I personally have found that as we get further and further away from the pandemic, you're seeing the bad habits. A lot of the bad habits are back. But I would say overall, people are definitely more aware. They understand the importance of it. There's certain aspects of infection control that we were never really talking about, like aerosol mitigation, things like that, high quality PPE. And now the conversations are more frequent. People understand when I'm training, they're like, oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Dental unit water lines is now a hot topic. And so 5 years ago, nobody was doing anything with water lines. So I think that even though it was, it exploded during the pandemic, we still, are seeing some topics in some areas where people are really making sure that they're adhering to certain things. And I agree with you. I think that the average dental clinician is trying to do the right thing. I just think that sometimes it's overwhelming with all the rules and regulations.
How do people keep up? I mean, I think to your point, like people want to do a good job, they're well intentioned, but I think most people feel so overwhelmed just with the day-to-day like dentisting stuff that happens in our
Yeah.
practices. So from a process standpoint, like how do we manage it all?
I mean, I feel like you need a system. Like we always, when we work
Yeah.
with offices, we have a plan, right? These are your logs, this is your process, these are your reminders to do things kind of stuff. Because definitely, I mean, as a clinician, you're doing your thing, you're taking care of your patient, you're not focusing on, you know, who's documenting this or who's sport testing or who's water testing or who's, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So like having a process and a system versus just having, you know, your OSHA book and your HIPAA book and just having it there and it just lives there and you never touch it and has dust on it. Like, are you
So
are
true.
you like feeling bad now? Did I just insult your
It's okay. We're used to the books collecting
yeah.
dust.
But like having a way to do it, and I think both India and I like help our offices, have a process and you know, an easy, organized way to do it where
Yeah.
it doesn't stress you out because it's not like, we're not recreating things every time we go in an office. There's a way to do this, so it's like almost like you don't have to, your person in your office doesn't need to like reinvent the wheel to try to figure out how to do it. There's, I don't know, systems. What do you think, India? Do you
Yeah,
agree?
no, I agree. I think system is key. I think that's the way that you approach this whole thing because, like I said, does get overwhelming. Now we're dealing with workforce shortages. And so that can affect, if certain tasks get done. So absolutely, I think having a system, making it simple. And I would say too, making it a team approach is key. Instead of putting it all on one person, you can have, your infection control coordinator or OSHA safety officer. They can oversee, but delegating to everybody on the team at least one duty really allows for, a solid program. And then you can have peace of mind and get back to the business of dentistry, because that's really, why we're there. We have to do dentistry on our patients.
How do you pick that person? I feel like we like the idea of delegating, but I feel like sometimes you can delegate and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, box checked. Now accountability gets lost. And so I think that, we need to select the right person. And also, I think it still needs some follow-up. I mean, we need to get back to dentistry, but I think this is something that should be reinforced more periodically.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we always say, right? I mean, ultimately, the owner of the practice, like, we're in charge, right? It's on you. So, I mean, we see a lot of times, and I don't know, Indy, if you see this a lot, but like, we'll see, you know, Pam is in charge of spore testing, and like, she got busy that week, or she's not here that week, or whatever, and it doesn't get done. So, that's kind of a big miss. So, definitely, I mean, I see a lot of owners kind of don't have any idea what's going on in that. So I think, yes, you pick the right person and you pick the person you think is going to do it, but then you have to either have a way to check, documentation and stuff, or, following up with people and making sure they're actually doing it, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think, you have to look at the workplace behavior of a person, and you have to make sure that they have the personality of taking initiative. They are dependable. They have a little bit of knowledge around being able to delegate a little bit. And I typically will recommend that the infection control coordinator get a little extra training, whether it's through ADS, formerly OSAP. Michelle Strange has a great Level Up IP. She has a great 1-hour course tailored for infection control coordinators, because I think that yes, you can assign somebody and you can choose that person, but if they don't have any education, a lot of times if people don't know what to do, they do nothing. And so that's where you see the gaps. When I walk into practices, you see the gaps, or, the practice owner has chosen someone who is just not the right person to be the ICC. They're like the sheriff in town, and they're cracking the whip on everybody, and everybody rolls their eyes, when I walk in, and they're like, please get this person, because, he or she is out of control. So I typically will have to go in and re-educate a little bit and say, hey, we're the coach, we're not the sheriff. And so, I think you do have to consider the workplace personality when you're choosing somebody. What I've seen in the past is dentists will just choose whoever shows up for work regularly. That's who they're going to choose. That's the person that's been with me the longest. They're just going to, and they don't want the job. They don't want it. And it shows. And so I think just kind of taking some time to look at who is working for you and what their personality is key to choosing that infection control coordinator.
I those are really great points when you think of the mindset shift that needs to happen, to your point, right? Like the OSHA police, or, an office manager. Like, I don't want to be
Yes.
managed, and I really don't want the police pulling up behind me, right?
Right, right.
You guys ever driven down
Right.
the highway? Like, I'm not speeding or doing anything wrong, but like, I
Right.
feel like
Yeah, you
something bad's
panic.
happening.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Some people, the power goes to their head, right? So they take their job extremely seriously, while, other people are like, look, I'm just trying to, like, see my patient and go take my kid to soccer practice. You know what I mean? So it's there's a fine line. You have to be mindful of that when you're with your team.
And just on that note, like, we're not the police. Like, if you
Yeah.
hire someone to come into your office, I come in, I'm all chill, I'm doing my thing. And like, I don't like, the people are like sweating.
Yes.
And they're, there's like, they're beside themselves.
Yes, yes,
Like, you hired us, like, we're here to help you. We're here to prevent
yes,
if someone of, authority that could get you in trouble. So like, I think a lot of people, like, they're afraid to have us in,
Yeah.
because it's better to just not know and stick your head in the sand, right? So it's just funny because I do think a lot of people think, like, I'll come in and half the time they'll be like, oh, you're the lady from OSHA. I'm like, no, I do not. I am not from OSHA.
Yeah,
I have a company that does OSHA stuff, but yeah.
right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've experienced the
Oh,
same thing.
there's a narc. There's a narc in the
Yeah,
building. There's a narc.
exactly. Everybody's wearing PPE. Everybody's got utility
yeah,
gloves
they're
on. Everybody's
and
like
then
walking the line. It's really funny. And I have to tell people, it's okay, calm down.
right.
There's no need to be nervous.
I know. I've had people ask me, like, I write up a report, right? And then I've had them ask me, okay, so you're going to send that to the state? I'm like, no.
Right.
You're
Like,
like,
I'm
oh
sending
yeah.
this to you. Yeah, oh yeah. But that was the big thing. Like, when I first started this company, I called the board and I'm like, what's my responsibility? Like, if I see something, and they were like, you are responsible if someone is actively hurting someone,
Right.
you need to tell someone, right? Like, if you see gross negligence, but like, I never see that. I see, we see so much stuff, but I've never called anyone out. Or,
But having said that, though, there are some infractions, if you want to call it that, that could lead to a serious outcome. So would you share with us about, some things that you've seen that, or maybe some scenarios that somebody did get in trouble? I mean, not because of you, but because of, what was going on in the practice.
Well, for me, I am a state board inspector too, in addition to being a consultant. And so
you
I
are
do
scary.
yeah, but so I have to reassure everybody, I'm not
Do
going to
you wear like
report you.
different hats for those things?
No.
Okay.
But no, I mean, there was one time where we had a dentist who was rinsing his instruments off with water, and he just put those in sterilization pouches and then put the pouches in the drawers because he wanted the patients to think that they were sterilized.
Oh,
We
geez.
had a doc who was practicing dentistry out of his garage, but he was dumping the biohazard down the community sewer, and it backed up the whole neighborhood. And then the neighborhood called, the water company, and they dig up, the ground and find all this biohazardous waste. So we were called out, So I've personally been in a situation where I was doing a training and it got raided by the sheriff's office. So, I mean, I have stories upon stories upon stories to share. I don't know about you, Lisa, if you've seen anything, but yeah, I mean, just unlawfully practicing dentistry, washing gloves and hanging them on a clothesline. That was another one. Running an escort service out of the dental office, and the dental assistant was the lead madam, and infection control, needless to say, was not part of their equation. So,
Lisa, you've got some topping of stories to do.
I don't really have something that can beat that. I mean, I see more of, a patient complains about something, they're complaining, you charge them $20 too much, or they have, you did something, they're not happy about it, or they go to another dentist and the dentist is like, oh, we have to redo that. So then they file a board complaint, and then your whole world gets opened up. So I see more of, like, I always focus on, like, dental records and charts and stuff like that too. So like, I see once somebody complains about something, you may be able to easily, like, oh, here, I'll just give you the $20 back. But, oh, now look, your records stink. Or, oh, you haven't been sport testing, or you haven't been water testing. Like I see a lot of that. I see a lot of, like, someone's on vacation and they're just not doing it, and then it doesn't get done and nobody knows, more of those kind of sort of people getting in trouble sort of inadvertently, and what's scary, I think, is that I feel like what COVID gave patients is sort of this freedom to be able to know that infection control exists, but not really understand it. Like, I always say, like, they got an infection control degree from, like, a really bad school, because they know enough to know infection control exists, but they don't know what they're talking about. So they're really quick to complain or to, call, the town board of health or OSHA or someone, which I find is really scary. So that's more of what I see. I definitely think it'd be way more fun to be in there and be rated. That sounds really fancy.
It was crazy. I'm telling you. I'm there doing the training and I hear, we're coming in. And I'm like, wait, what is going on? I had to grab my computer. I said, look, I'm just the trainer. I'm just the trainer.
I don't work here.
They're like,
Let
sure
me
you
grab
are.
my computer.
Yeah.
I grabbed my computer with my backpack. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Yeah. It was pretty
Pam, in your
crazy.
next bank heist, just be like, I'm just a trainer.
Right. Exactly. I'm
Yeah.
just here doing compliance training. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Lisa. I just think that what I will say is being an inspector, what typically happens is if you get reported to the board, let's say for malpractice, they will automatically attach an infection control inspection to that because they're just trying to build the case.
Yeah.
And one fun fact, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the state's attorneys, what they'll do when you get reported, whether it's malpractice or specifically for infection control, they immediately go to your social media channels and they gather pictures and images to support their argument that you are not doing correct infection control. So you've got to be careful what you are posting on your social media channels as far as if you're in the operatory and you're treating a patient, make sure you've got on all correct PPE, like scan the picture or the video, make sure there's no infection control breaches before it gets posted, because if it gets posted and you get reported, that's something that they include into the case.
I'm glad you brought
And you
that
want,
up because I
yeah,
think social
okay.
media too is, we were talking about patients being upset, but scan a Facebook group,
Oh my
which
gosh.
are awful, FYI,
Yes,
right?
yes,
But
yes,
like, team members who get disgruntled and then they walk out
yes.
and then like, hey man, I'm walking out the door and I am leaving a wake behind me.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I literally just had a conversation yesterday with a client who had I just did their training. Flew down to Atlanta, just did their training last week. And this week the hygienist gets a needle stick and she's, she didn't wear her utility gloves like she was trained to do. And she didn't want to go to urgent care, which is fine. That's her choice, but the language that started to come out, "Oh, I'm not going to sue, but
Mm.
everybody else is doing it," and things like that, So what I was sharing with my client is you have to be careful, because what I'm noticing, what a trend, there's a trend in the Facebook groups for auxiliary staff right now, where if a disgruntled employee, they will post about what's going on and they want advice. And I mean, it's comment after comment, report them, report them, report them. Nobody's really saying, hey, go have a conversation with the dentist to see if maybe they're just not aware. Maybe they thought it was happening. Maybe they thought it was going on. And I mean, it's comment after comment, report them, quit, tell OSHA about them. And so you're absolutely correct, David, on that, because it's definitely getting more aggressive, and auxiliary staff has no issue at all with reporting now. Used to be kind of, you're a little hesitant because you were a little nervous about it. Now it's no holds barred. So, and what's interesting to me about that is you worked there for 3 years, everything was great. And then something happens, you don't want to work there anymore. Now all of a sudden the infection control or the workplace safety isn't okay anymore. So that's kind of, what I've noticed.
So when
But
something
another
like
thing,
that, oh, sorry.
go.
I was going to say, when something like that happens, so I'm the practice owner. I did my due diligence. I have all of the equipment there. I've had everybody recently trained. You chose not to put those gloves on and you got a needle stick. Can she sue and get anything from it? Or I mean, or is it like, nope, you're ultimately liable because you should be looking over everybody's shoulders?
It's not that she could sue, probably wouldn't, the case wouldn't really go anywhere. But the CDC guidelines do state that the practice owner is ultimately responsible to monitor. And same with the OSHA regulations. So as a practice owner, you are responsible to monitor. Now, obviously, you can't force anybody, but when you are monitoring, it should, you know, things need to be written in your employee handbook, what the non-negotiables are when it comes to infection control. You are required to do this. Now, as a practice owner, you have to be willing to back up that requirement if you have people that are not adhering to your protocols. You have to be willing to write them up, or, you know, and I know with workforce shortages, it's a little sticky now, and you do have a lot of auxiliary staff holding their bosses hostage. And so it's a little tough sometimes to, you know, you just have that one employee that just does not want to follow rules, but you don't want to push too hard because then they'll quit and then it will affect the whole practice. And so, but at the end of the day, the practice owner is responsible, but I have, in my experience, I haven't seen a dentist get sued and it be successful in that case because the employee chose not to wear, you know, the gloves.
Right, but then you hope nothing else is going on because then they do get,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, that type of employee will, I would say that type of
Yeah.
employee would submit a complaint.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
There's certain
Lisa,
workplace personalities that will submit.
what if, for example, you didn't get your compliance training and you're overdue and you didn't, you know, you don't have your annual OSHA checkup. And so then this happened. Is that like a whole different bag that we're dealing with?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, you're supposed to go over infection control and OSHA every year in your office. You know,
Mhm.
you don't need it for credit, you need it for your
Mhm.
license cycle, but you're supposed to go over it. And anytime you do anything, you got to document it. So
Right.
if you know, if you have an office that two offices that complain, right? And one of them has all their things and they're doing all their things, and it's just one weird thing that someone didn't wear something, that office is going to fare so much better than the
Yes.
office that hasn't done infection control in years or kind of half does infection control. I mean, the other big important thing to know is that like anyone who has a dental license, whether it's a hygienist or a dentist or a dental assistant in the office, is responsible. Like you have a license, so it's your license. So if you're working in an office and they're saying, here's your one pair of gloves for the day, you got to wash them off and, you know, work on every patient, and you do that, your license is at risk too. So it's kind of scary, you know?
It is scary because I had a case where the patient reported the dental assistant. And what that did, because our dental assistants in my state, they have a number and they are registered with the state. And that number came up. I went there to legally inspect the assistant. But what happened was when I got there, all of the clinicians got inspected. So, you know, the dentist and the hygienist, they're doing everything they're supposed to do. You know, but I'm coming to inspect the assistant. But when I come, I'm inspecting the entire office and every licensed and certified clinician. And so in that particular case, what ended up happening was now the dentist, both the dentists got included in the case. So, but again, it's their job to make sure that the auxiliary staff is adhering. So it wasn't necessarily that the dentist was doing anything wrong. It was an assistant. And whoever gets reported can get the other licensed healthcare providers in trouble in the case too. So it really is a team approach. Like everybody should be monitoring everybody and supporting each other and making sure that everybody's doing the right thing as a whole, because you can get in trouble because somebody else was doing something incorrect and the patient complained about that person and you had nothing to do with that. But when the inspector comes in, it's everybody's fair game.
Yeah. And that's why it's really scary. I mean, you know, as far as being the owner, because I mean, we've had offices that they're not sport testing, the owner has no idea, and now they get some kind of complaint against that or something that now exposes that, and it's your fault, right? I mean, you know, you're supposed to know. I mean, I honestly in dental school, I don't know about you guys, but like I didn't learn how to sport test. I don't even think I learned that sport testing was a thing, right?
We
So
learned
like,
it in dental hygiene school.
Yes, we
did
did.
you?
Yeah, we did. We
Absolutely.
used,
Yeah, we did.
yeah,
No, dental
yeah.
hygiene school is better than dental school for that. But like we didn't learn. I literally thought the dental board was only just to send my license, right? I didn't know there were rules. I didn't know we had to follow anything. I mean, I'm old, so I graduated a long time ago. But I, you know, it's scary, I think, for an owner because you're supposed to know all those things that other people learned in hygiene school that you didn't learn. And
Yeah.
you're responsible for it. And if you don't do it, or again, Pam goes on vacation, or it got crazy busy and you ended up not sport testing that week, it's on you. And I find that really scary.
That's a really good point. So I'm a
That we're
first
uneducated.
dentists that we're just terrible. um, First practice owners, like,
Yeah.
so, you know, they don't know what they don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Fortunately, my first practice was an acquisition, so I inherited
okay.
a great team of people who knew some things and taught me. But
Mhm.
I bet that, some of the time that's not true, and certainly in a startup.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would totally agree. I get a lot of clients that call me and they're new practice owners. And they're like, nobody told us anything about this. Nobody mentioned this at all during dental school. Nobody taught that we don't talk about this. What do we do? And so it is true. I also, and that's why I know Lisa was saying earlier, putting it all in a system to make it more simple and easy, because as a new dentist or a new practice owner, there really isn't one place that you can go and get all of the rules for OSHA and HIPAA and CDC. Like, you have to go to all these different websites. You got to kind of piece stuff together. And so, yeah, no, I mean, and it goes back to what Pam said earlier. The average person is trying to do the right thing. They just don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
And that's why, I get a lot of calls, as Lisa does, to come in and say, help us get, like, even establish something here, because we have no idea what to do. What I will say, one tip and piece of advice I will give new practice owners or dentists who are newly acquiring offices, or maybe you're doing a brand new build out, you should consult someone that has some form of compliance experience, because they can really, like, help you. Let's say in your sterilization area, especially with new build outs. It's surprising to me that a lot of these dental companies, they'll come in and they'll sell you all this stuff and cabinetry and everything, and they have the basics down. But when you look at it from a compliance standpoint with workflow and making sure that things are zoned properly according to the rules, having that advice is very helpful, so you don't do an incorrect build to where now you're not able to put your autoclave in the correct place because the cabinets are too low here. You know what I mean? Or you don't have the sink positioned correctly because whoever's doing your build out, or making the recommendation on doing the build out is has the sink in the wrong place. So I definitely recommend that, just because I experience that all the time, David. People just, they don't know.
Yeah. And even silly things like they don't know they have to register their radiation machines or
Oh,
their
yeah.
separator, or
Yeah.
or get an emergency kit.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many sort of things. And it's interesting because, like, when I work with new offices, sort of 50-50, it's like inheriting an office versus a brand new office. I find similar problems. I don't know if you do, India, too, but like sometimes inheriting an office is harder
It's worse.
because
Yeah.
you've now inherited bad habits, or someone who's been there for 30 years who's kind of, in charge now, and they're sort of doing it this way. And like, that's just not the, compliant way to do it, shall we say?
Yeah.
That was my story in my practice.
Yeah.
They were like, we do everything. Okay. I was like, all right, well, where's the book? And I bought my practice in 2014, and the book was still in its plastic.
Yeah.
And
Did it have that cool
open.
sound when you opened it?
No dust on it.
It was like, yeah, no
Protected.
dust.
Yeah, exactly.
Very special. And then I said,
that's
well,
really
what
nice.
about water lines? We tested
Right.
water lines.
What are
Yeah, we're
those?
doing it all. I said, okay, well, where do we send the test? We should
Yeah.
test the water lines.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
had any idea what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
We
You mean
tested-
you mean the line that suctions all the water? No, that's
Yes.
not what we're talking
Yes.
about.
Yeah, we tested the water finally, and
Yeah.
the results were amazing. It was TNTC, too numerous to count. There wasn't even a number on this planet that could quantify the amount of
Yeah.
shit in
Yeah.
the water.
Yeah.
And it was insane. It was such an
Yeah.
overhaul to have to do it. So, okay. Long story short, we need systems. And not only do we need systems in place, we need evolving systems. So if you
Mhm.
think you have a
Yes.
system, certainly worth bringing somebody in to make sure your systems are A, correct, but also maybe they might need a little bit of updating. So sadly, we are at the top of our time here. So would you share where people can find you, where they can learn from you, and obviously where could they invite you into their practices, provided you're not a brothel?
Well, India can go to the brothels.
I think that's an
okay.
exception now.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
brothels included.
Yeah.
Everyone's welcome.
We'll test your water at the brothels. Yes.
Yes. So I own Dental Office Compliance, and you can reach me at doc4ne.com. That's how you can get me if you're interested.
And
No brothels here.
No brothels. Okay, right. I'll take care of the brothels and all the raids. Yes. So I own Learn to Prevent, and you can reach me at learntoprevent.com. And we'd love to help you, regardless of your dental setting.
Yeah, exactly. And no judgment, because we're not the
No judgment.
well, she is, but I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
No, I appreciate knowing that there are resources and friends that we can rely on to help us make sure our systems are in place. And not only that, but what to do if you know that OSHA is going to come and take a look. So certainly it would be nice to reach you ahead of time and be, proactive here. But obviously, if you're in
Can't
a
always
pinch,
do that.
I think that you'd be the first one I'd be calling to. So thank you so much for joining us and for your insights and your candor. This was really interesting for me.
Thank you guys
Thanks
for
for having
having us. Yes, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
gang. Well, we'll see you next week here at Dentistry Unmasked. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to the show this week. And thanks to our guests and sponsors on this episode.
Please check out our social media at Dr. Pamela_Maragliano and at Dental Economics Official.
Or you can check me out at Ignite DDS or at Dr. David Rice.
And go to dentaleconomics.com to receive dental economics. You can choose to receive DE in print or digitally, and you can also get the details of our Principles of Practice Management conference on our website.
If you have topics or guests or anything you'd like to talk about on the show, send us an email to dentistryunmaskedpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.